In a small, sleepy town nestled in the heart of the countryside, a quiet woman named Eleanor James lived in a modest cottage on the outskirts. The townsfolk knew Eleanor as a solitary figure, a woman of quiet strength and unwavering kindness, who worked at the local library. She spent her days lost in books, and her nights in peaceful solitude, the fire crackling in her small living room. The world had moved around her, fast and full of life, but Eleanor's own existence had always been a quiet one. For years, Eleanor had longed for a family. She had dreamed of the sound of children's laughter echoing through the halls, of sharing her love and life with someone she could call her own. But as the years passed, that dream had slowly faded into the background, overtaken by the practicalities of life. A failed marriage, the never-ending work at the library, and the weight of disappointment had convinced her that perhaps motherhood was not meant for her. But one winter's evening, as Eleanor sat by the fire with a cup of tea, listening to the wind howl against the windows, something stirred deep inside her. She couldn't explain it, but there was a sudden longing, an urgent need to share her life, her love, with someone. She felt it like a fire in her chest, a quiet but undeniable call. The next morning, Eleanor made a decision. She would adopt a child. Her heart fluttered with the thought, fear mingling with hope. At 40 years old, and alone, she knew it wouldn't be easy. People would question her, doubt her ability to raise a child on her own, especially at her age. But she didn't care. She had love in her heart, and that was all she needed. When Eleanor visited the local adoption agency a few weeks later, the social worker was kind but cautious. "We have many children who need homes," the woman explained, her eyes searching Eleanor's for any sign of hesitation. "But I must ask, are you sure this is something you want to do? Adoption, especially at your age, can be challenging. Some of these children come with difficult pasts." Eleanor nodded. "I'm sure," she said firmly, her heart resolute. "I have love to give, and I want to share it with a child who needs it." The woman smiled, though there was a hint of hesitation in her eyes. "There's a little girl," she said softly, pulling a file from her desk. "Her name is Maya. She's 3 years old. But there's something you should know. Maya is black, and sometimes, that can bring complications. People may not always understand your decision." Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. The thought of Maya, a small child in need of love, waiting for someone to embrace her, overwhelmed her with emotion. She didn't care about the color of Maya's skin or what people might think. All she saw was a child who needed a mother, and she was determined to be that mother. "Tell me about her," Eleanor whispered, her voice barely able to contain the surge of emotion rising in her chest. The social worker told Eleanor about Maya's early life, a life filled with abandonment and uncertainty. Maya had been placed in the foster system when she was just a baby, moving from home to home. She had never known stability, never felt the warmth of a mother's arms for more than a fleeting moment. That evening, Eleanor couldn't stop thinking about the little girl with dark, curly hair and wide, uncertain eyes. She imagined Maya playing in the garden, curled up in her lap as they read books by the fire. She imagined a future filled with love and laughter. And so, Eleanor made her choice. She would adopt Maya. The first time Eleanor met Maya was a moment that would stay etched in her memory forever. It was a sunny day, though a cold wind still whispered through the trees. Eleanor stood outside the small playroom where Maya was waiting, her heart pounding in her chest. When the door opened, Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. There, sitting quietly on a small chair, was Maya. She was tiny, with skin the color of warm caramel and eyes that seemed too large for her small face. In her lap was a tattered stuffed rabbit, its fur worn and matted from years of being clutched tightly. Maya didn't smile, didn't even speak, she simply stared up at Eleanor with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Eleanor knelt down to Maya's level, her heart aching at the sight of this fragile little girl. "Hello, Maya," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'm Eleanor. I'm here to take you home." For a long moment, Maya didn't respond. She simply held on to her rabbit, her eyes never leaving Eleanor's face. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched Eleanor's hand, a small, tentative gesture, but one that spoke volumes. In that moment, Eleanor knew she had found her daughter. The early years were challenging. Maya had never known stability, and trust didn't come easily to her. She was quiet, often withdrawn, and there were nights when she would wake up screaming, haunted by nightmares of abandonment and loss. But Eleanor never wavered. She sat with Maya during those long, sleepless nights, holding her close and whispering words of comfort. "You're safe, Maya," Eleanor would murmur, stroking her daughter's hair as they sat by the fire. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, and I always will be." Slowly but surely, Maya began to open up. She started to smile more, to laugh, and to trust that Eleanor wasn't like the others, she wasn't going to leave. By the time Maya was 8, the bond between mother and daughter was unbreakable. They were each other's world, but life in the small town of Meadowbrook wasn't always kind. Eleanor and Maya were different, and some people couldn't accept that. Whispers followed them when they walked down the street, and there were always those who looked at them with judgment in their eyes. "Why did she adopt a black child?" they would murmur. "Doesn't she know the problems that'll bring?" One day, when Maya was 9, she came home from school in tears. "Why don't I look like you?" she asked, her voice filled with confusion and hurt. "Why do people stare at us?" Eleanor's heart broke as she knelt down in front of her daughter, taking her hands in her own. "Maya, love doesn't see the color of our skin," she said gently. "People may not always understand our family, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what's in here." She placed a hand over Maya's heart. "You're my daughter, and I love you more than anything in this world." Maya nodded, wiping away her tears, but Eleanor knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. Despite everything, Eleanor's love never wavered. She raised Maya to be strong, to be proud of who she was, and to know that she was loved unconditionally. As the years passed, Maya grew into an extraordinary young woman. She was brilliant, kind, and fiercely creative. She excelled in school, her natural curiosity and love for storytelling taking her to new heights. Despite the struggles they faced, Maya never let the world's harsh judgments diminish her light. Eleanor, though older and more fragile now, watched with pride as her daughter blossomed into the strong, confident woman she had always hoped she would be. But life had begun to take its toll on Eleanor. She had developed a chronic illness, one that left her weak and often bedridden. Maya, now in her 20s, took care of her mother with the same love and devotion that Eleanor had shown her all those years ago, but as Eleanor's health declined, Maya knew she had to do something. She couldn't let her mother's sacrifices, her unwavering love, go unrecognized. Maya needed to show the world, and most importantly, her mother, how much she had meant to her, so, Maya began to plan. For months, she worked tirelessly, reaching out to people from all over the country, people who had been adopted, who had adopted children themselves, and who understood the profound impact that love could have on a life. She collected letters, photos, and stories, each one a testament to the power of family and the bonds that transcended race and blood. Then, one autumn evening, Maya asked Eleanor to join her for a special event at the local community center. Eleanor, though frail, agreed, her heart swelling with curiosity and love for her daughter. When they arrived, Eleanor was greeted with a sight that took her breath away. The room was filled with hundreds of people, friends, neighbors, strangers, who had all gathered to honor Eleanor. The walls were lined with photos and letters from people all over the country, each one sharing their stories of adoption, love, and the challenges they had overcome. At the front of the room was a stage, and Maya gently guided her mother toward it. Eleanor, overwhelmed and teary-eyed, looked at her daughter in disbelief. "Maya, what is all this?" she whispered. Maya smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "This, Mom, is for you. For everything you've done. For all the love you've given me, and for every sacrifice you've made." Maya then turned to the crowd and began to speak. Her voice trembled with emotion, but she stood tall and proud. "My mother, Eleanor James, is the most remarkable woman I've ever known," Maya said, her voice echoing through the room. "She adopted me when I was just a scared little girl, and she gave me the love and stability I never thought I'd have. She didn't care that I didn't look like her. She didn't care about the whispers or the judgments of others. All she cared about was giving me a home, a family, and a life filled with love." The room was silent, the weight of Maya's words settling over the crowd. "She taught me that love isn't about blood. It's about what we give to one another. The kindness we show, and the sacrifices we make for the people we care about." Tonight, I wanted to honor her and show her just how many lives she's touched. Not just mine, but the lives of so many others who understand what it means to love without conditions, without judgment. As Maya spoke, people in the crowd began to cry, touched by the raw emotion in her words, and the profound love between mother and daughter. One by one, people approached the podium to share their stories, each one a testament to the power of love and family. Strangers came forward to hug Eleanor, to thank her for being an example of what true motherhood looked like. They shared stories of their own adoption journeys, of the struggles they had faced and the triumphs they had achieved. The room was filled with laughter, tears, and a deep sense of gratitude for the woman who had given so much of herself to her daughter and the world around her. Eleanor, sitting quietly at the front of the room, was overwhelmed. She had never imagined that her simple act of adopting Maya, of giving her a home, would ripple out into the world in such a profound way. As the night drew to a close, Maya sat beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. "You've given me everything, Mom," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to give something back to you, to show you how much I love you, and how much you mean to me." Eleanor, her eyes filled with tears, smiled softly. "You were always enough, Maya," she said, her voice breaking. "Just having you was more than I ever needed." And in that moment, surrounded by love and gratitude, mother and daughter sat together, knowing that the bond they shared was unbreakable. Eleanor had given Maya the gift of a mother's love, and Maya had repaid that love tenfold, by showing the world that love. True love transcends everything. The applause still echoed in the air as the night came to a close, but for Eleanor and Maya, it wasn't the noise that mattered. It was the quiet, steady pulse of their love, a love that had begun on a cold winter's night so many years ago, and had blossomed into something extraordinary. It was a love that would live on forever, touching the hearts of all who were fortunate enough to witness it, and so, as the last guests left the community center, and the room fell silent once more, Eleanor and Maya sat together in the stillness of the night, their hearts full. They knew that, no matter what the future held, they had each other, and that was more than enough. The fire that had once flickered so quietly in Eleanor's heart had grown into a blaze, fueled by the love of a daughter who had come into her life like a gift from the universe. And in the end, it was that love that carried them both, long into the night and beyond.